Hi everyone, so today I wanted to share my thoughts regarding goals using the UDL framework and barriers that are found in the traditional classroom and how UDL can resolve some of those barriers. So the first things first, goals. We learned in Dr. Nelson's book in chapter 7, The Goal and the Lesson, that the goal is the heart of the lesson. We need clear goals, not only for us as teachers and as educators, but also for students. If we are able to align the goal and the lesson, then we have a clear and direct path. Those are some of the things that really stuck out to me in this chapter, the goal and the lesson, because students need to know what they're working towards. We as educators need an outcome or a means to an end. How are they going to achieve what we want them to achieve? And I think there's a lot of ways that we can do this. I know in my own classroom, because I work with students who have autism and they have an IEP and they're in a self-contained program, we oftentimes write IEP goals. And those are measurable, attainable, and students can perform them in multiple means. And we kind of leave that more open-ended. They just, by the end of the year, they need to be able to do a certain skill or have obtained a certain skill. But in regards to everyday classroom, I haven't really put a lot of focus into goal writing and making sure that my students really understand, okay, what is it we're doing today? What does Ms. Garcia really want them to be able to do by the end of the day, end of the week, end of the unit? So that is something that I'm definitely going to put more thought into, as in chapter 6 of Universal Design for Learning, it was stated that students perform better in school and in across state exams if they know what's expected of them throughout the lesson, if they are able to identify the goal of the lesson. More flexible verbs. I found the flexible verbs in the book Your UDL Lesson Planner to be incredibly helpful and something that I plan on using in my classroom. I feel that by using more flexible verbs, you're making the goals more flexible, which is then going to drive your instruction and your method of assessment. In chapter 6 of the textbook Universal Design for Learning, we learned that formative assessments need to be ongoing, they need to be flexible, and they need to account for learner variability. By having goals that are more flexible, we can then have formative assessments that are flexible and that students are creating maybe products and things in different ways. For example, in my classroom right now, some of my students are learning two-step equations, how to solve two-step equations. What we've been doing is they've become expert learners in how to solve two-step equations. So once they've solved a two-step equation, they can then go up to the board or draw it out on their own whiteboards, but then they're also sharing with other students on what that looks like. How did they come up with the answer? How did they solve this equation? By doing this, students are not only solving two-step equations, but we're also getting some social skills time in throughout the lesson, and students are really engaged in the lesson as they want to share with their peers and they want to find the answer. This also allows me to do some reflection and make sure that students are on the right track, and as I'm walking around the classroom to see if maybe there's any corrections that I need to make before they get up and share with their peers on how to solve these equations. So let's talk barriers. Oftentimes there are many barriers that are associated with a traditional classroom, where the teacher is using one means to gauge whether or not the student understood the learning concept, goal, or standard, which is usually through paper and pencil. As a special education educator, I have found that students do not necessarily perform very well on paper and pencil tasks, usually because they have maybe a reading comprehension deficit, poor handwriting, or just a general lack of engagement. Bringing in flexible technology into the classroom allows students more options to express what they know and what they still need to continue to grow in a goal or standard. At my school, we use a program called Kahoot, where students can be on their devices during a lesson, and the teacher poses open-ended questions through Kahoot. Students are able to answer these questions in multiple means, either through text or pictures, where the teacher can reflect on whether or not the student really understood what she or he was teaching at the time. In addition, all of my students, as well as my entire school, has been using Google Classrooms and Google Docs. All of my students are able to log on to Google Docs and are able to open up a document. We are working on with them using features in Google Docs so that they can express themselves through writing much better, in the sense that they use things like Google Voice, as well as word prediction and read and write. This has allowed my students to be more engaged with the writing activity and to be able to use the supports that they need to express themselves through written expression. I believe that flexible technology has really helped in creating student-centered ideas and products, as well as keeping students engaged throughout a lesson, activity, and/or assessment.